What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jay Rich. It's Wednesday, January 24th, and here are my NBA best bets presented by Pinnacle Sportsbook, your trusted sportsbook for the past 25 years. Need to rebound this week after a rough week last week. Now, we did have Giannis sit, which didn't help, and the Jazz game was postponed, but the Warriors return to action tonight and will be a very emotional and exciting atmosphere. Hopefully, the Dubs can bounce back, but we have an 8-game slate in the NBA, tons of big spreads, so lots to dive into, but let's get into it right now. So as you can see here, massive slate in the NBA. I mean, you got the Charlotte Hornets against the Detroit Pistons favored. Loving potentially taking the Hornets here, but it is important to mention the Pistons have covered in their last 5 games. Now, they were underdogs in all of those games, so it's very interesting to see them here as favorites, knowing that Charlotte has beat the Minnesota Timberwolves just last game, and the Pistons lost the Timberwolves only a few days ago. You have the Bucks and Cavs in another matchup. This one is in Milwaukee after, of course, like I mentioned, Milwaukee got stomped by the Cavs just last Wednesday. So it'll be interesting to see how that matchup plays out. Probably staying away from that one. You got 10 points for the Miami Heat over the Grizzlies. It's a big number. We don't know if Terry Rozier is going to play in this game. We did see him getting off the tarmac in Miami yesterday, but we don't know what his status is for today after the trade, and didn't even mention that with Charlotte, but they are playing their first game without Rozier, who didn't have his best game last game, but still a guy who plays 32 to 35 minutes every single night, so that will be missed for them in this game. But we do have the Portland Trail Blazers playing their 3rd game in 4 nights against Houston. Houston hasn't played since Sunday, so definitely well rested. But the Trail Blazers, surprisingly, are the #1 team against the spread in the NBA with a back-to-back. So it used to be Oklahoma City, and we talked about them. Another team playing on a back-to-back. They went to the brink with Portland just yesterday. Now they face off against the Spurs, who are going to be a tough matchup and playing much better. We have Dallas and Phoenix in another game that I'm very excited to watch, because hopefully Phoenix can get some revenge after they lost to Dallas on Christmas Day, as I predicted, by the way. And as I mentioned, we have the Golden State Warriors and the Atlanta Hawks. The number isn't up right now. It was up at 7.5. We'll see where it sits. I've seen it between 6.5, 7.5. A lot of points, in my opinion, for the Golden State Warriors, but it's going to be a big game for them. If they're going to play their best game this season, this is probably going to be the one. They've been off for about a week, so it's going to be an emotional return. It's going to be a big game. We fully expect the Warriors to take advantage of the moment and absolutely destroy the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks, by the way, are the worst team in the NBA against the spread on the road, but the Warriors at home have not been much better. So there's still a lot of things to consider with that matchup. But I think I'm going to start with the Charlotte Hornets. I think when it all comes down to it, I'm just not taking Detroit as favorites ever. Like, I just do not care who they are playing. They are playing better. They have covered 5 straight spreads. But the Charlotte Hornets as well have won 2 of their last 3 games. They're playing good as well and covering some spreads. So you look at just these 3 points, and I say to myself, is there a world where I believe that the Pistons are going to actually cover a spread against any team in the NBA? And the answer is just no. The answer is just no. They will do it from time to time, and I can pull up their log here. You know, like I mentioned, they covered 5 straight spreads. But, I mean, these guys are never favored. Last time they were favored was against Utah. They lost, right? We talked about them against the Spurs. The Spurs slapped them at home, as I predicted, on the 10th. So, like, you look at what this team is doing right now, and you just say, like, how in the world can I trust the team to cover? Now, you look at Charlotte, it's not much better. Like I mentioned, they covered 2 of their last 3 games. They have, won 2 of their last 3 games as well. Obviously, the big win against Minnesota, and beat San Antonio, which, again, another bad team, but a win is a win. And they were favored by 5, didn't cover. But this game, they're underdogs in Detroit. So, all things considered, I do think that taking Charlotte is a fine play here. They are playing reasonably well. I don't love they're not going to have Rozier, but he didn't do much in the last game when they beat Minnesota. So you look at how they match up against Detroit, I just believe they have more talent on their roster and they can win this game. Or at least if they don't win and they lose, it's a close game, it's tight. And I think that, you look back to that San Antonio game and you say, who's the best player on the court? It's probably LaMelo Ball. And if LaMelo Ball can play at his best, I believe that Charlotte can win this game. And so for me, I'm starting off with Charlotte +3. It is a little bit scary because I don't love Charlotte as a team, but Detroit is just by far the worst team in the NBA. I don't even think it's particularly close. So because of that, I will be taking Charlotte as my first pick. I just have to fade Detroit at all costs it must be done. Now for my next pick. I think I'm going to be going to Phoenix. And the reason why is because I believe the money line is just a solid play today. Only favored by 2 points. It's going to be a tight game. They're in Dallas. The biggest thing with Phoenix is they've ripped off 6 straight. They haven't been covering in a lot of those games. They've been 4-point favorites, 5-point favorites. One of them, they were a big favorite in that game. So I don't love them to cover the spread. Again, it's 2 points, not a bad spread at all. But this is a team that has been beaten by Dallas a couple times this year. They haven't been playing overly well at times, especially against the spread. But if you just look at their form recently, being able to rally, play well, and rip off 6 straight wins, that is impressive. The 3 of them been on the road, 3 of them been at home. So definitely lots of good things that we've seen from this Phoenix team. A team that is slowly starting to figure it out, play well together. So for me, you look at what's happening right now for the Phoenix Suns. I think you ride the heater they're on right now. We did this with the Clippers. It worked out pretty well for us. So I think this is a great time to pick the Suns yet again against Dallas, who's only played 2 games in the last week, and they've lost both of them. So you look from that perspective, you look at Phoenix, they're playing very good basketball. They're winning games. They're playing in tight, contested contests and still coming through and winning those games. And Dallas hasn't been playing a whole lot. They've been kind of trying to figure things out again, get back in a rhythm, and they just haven't been able to do that yet. So to only get a 2-point spread here makes sense because Phoenix hasn't been good against the spread. Neither has Dallas, by the way. But if you're just taking this game in what it is, it's the battle of the stars in Phoenix versus the stars in Dallas. Give me the stars in Phoenix because they're in much better form and playing much better basketball right now. I'll be taking the Suns. I think they're the better pick. I will take the money line up to -130. If you get that 2.5 spread, maybe you got to go to that if the money line just gets juiced too far. But I think at -128, it's a pretty good bet, pretty fair. 1 possession game. Phoenix can win this one. And I think, is it a one score game or a 1-point game? Probably not. Let's just get at least the 2 points. Worst case push. That made me feel really good. So that's why I like the 2 points. If it was 2.5, I think it becomes a little bit closer. But knowing that you get a push if they only win by 2, and obviously a win beyond that, gives me a lot of confidence that Phoenix can win this game. So I will take the money line regardless. But if you did want to take the 2 and get a little bit more juice for your money, I don't hate that bet either. Now, we did see a game go off the board here, but it wasn't one I was looking at. One of the games that I am definitely considering is this Oklahoma City-San Antonio game. Like I mentioned yesterday, Oklahoma City went to the brink with Portland. They went to the brink with Portland. And that makes me think that maybe San Antonio can at least cover the spread. It's 7 points. I don't hate it at all. I think it's a pretty good number, and they've been playing much better basketball as of late. Oklahoma City, of course, juggernaut, phenomenal team, young. Trust them on back-to-backs. As I mentioned with Portland, Oklahoma City as well, one of the better teams on back-to-backs in the NBA. But when you look at just what happened last night, they just didn't play very well. And while Portland played a great game and it was a tight, contested matchup, they did have to go to the brink. It was a very stressful game. You could maybe see some guys rested. San Antonio, much better spot for them. They do have some rest. They're playing well. I do like them in this matchup. I think they can cover the 7 points. I think it's a great spot. Then you also look at Portland and Houston, and it's not like a pick for me, but it's crazy to think that Houston are 10-point favorites against the Rockets, who have been playing much better, have been covering spreads, but it is their 3rd game in 4 nights. And so if you were picking a game to have a team blow somebody out on a big spread, it probably would be the Houston Rockets. But the 10 points with the way they've been playing lately, I don't know, man. Like, it's the same with Minnesota. Like, Minnesota and Washington should easily be Minnesota, but they just blew a game against Charlotte where Karl-Anthony Towns scored 60 points. So it doesn't give me a lot of confidence that they're going to cover that wide spread. If you did want to look towards the over 229, it actually is a pretty decent number. You see the juice is favoring that line. Both teams, at least Minnesota on the road and Washington at home, I believe over 63% is the number going in the direction of overs for the spread. So both these teams cover at about 63% of the time towards the over when Minnesota is on the road and Washington is at home. Washington scores way more points at home and Minnesota as well on the road. So that is a good number as well. But as I mentioned, that Portland-Houston game, Oh, man, I don't know. But I think for me, if I was ranking the picks right now, it'd be Charlotte +3. It'd be Dallas and Phoenix, taking the Phoenix money line, and the San Antonio Spurs +7. If you want to sprinkle something on the over for Washington and Minnesota, not an official play for me. It's more just this is the trend of both these teams when the one is on the road and one is at home. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's not a bad number at 229, but not crazy value in my opinion. Just wanted to highlight to you because it is a pretty decent number per the data. But that's it for my NBA best bets. You can follow Pinnacle across all of our socials. You can follow me on Twitter or X at your boy Jay Ridge. And as always, bet smart and bet Pinnacle. Good luck, everybody. I'll see you guys next week. I'm out. Peace.